Page 3, Praise to Shakyamuni Buddha. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings in refuge. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one God beyond the destroyer, the completely perfected, perfectly knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, knower, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the subduer from the Shakya clan. I prostrate, make offerings in refuge. The founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one God beyond the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan. I prostrate in refuge, where no supreme hearts dream to perform on this earth. You paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you, who wise then, I prostrate. Your bodies form supreme wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the three worlds, when you're the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless flame, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Gospel like you, the incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the Pure of merit, all of his own vast ocean. To you, the one gone thus I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime reality, the Dharma that pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated, who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all free every devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms out of all aspects, through supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. To page 15, the Heart of Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya Thus did I hear at one time, massive ultras mountain in Rajragiha, together with at that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perfection. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara, looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, and beheld those 5 ragged goods also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the venerable Shariputra said this of Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara. Avalokiteshvara in each train, who wishes to practice this activity of profound perfection of wisdom. Said this to the venerable Shariputra. Who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom, correctly and repeatedly beholding those 5 ragged goods also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, and emptiness is form.
emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, non-deficient, but fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomena. There is no eye element, and so on, up to and including no mind element, and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as the truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Taya ta gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisoha. Shariputra, the bodhisattva mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the bodhisattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoiced. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. To page 25 for the short mandala. Sashi Toge Jukshik Genpade Sange Jingdu Mite Drokun Namla Shimla Jopasho Jetsa Lama Dape Kalnamki Choku Kale Jenze Dendene Jeta Sambe Jensimala Zapge Chuji Java Adoso Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnidiyatayami Sanje Jadan Saji Janala Janjo Bada Dani Jazonji Dagi Chujin Jibe Sonanji Tola Benje Sanje Dobara Sho Sanje Jadan Saji Janala Janjo Bada Dani Dagi Chujin Jibe Sonanji Tola Benje Sanje Dobara Sho Sanje Jadan Saji Janala Janjavada Dani Jasanje, Dagi Chujinji Sonanji, Dola Benji Sanje Dubresh. Ogani Jundu Ojonga, Wamewa Jimewa, Chomewa Damewa, Wamewa Duma. Tade Dimedi Jimmy, Doji Jinema, Zobas Yamanani, Tamadela Chazelo. Yende Jawazona Guji, Nijin Zakain down, Dola Bachinala, she didn't do the Kanda yanda de bete na nama kone na sa de samba nye de shi che se me su che san je jine de lo cha ze lo. Do nye nye che sa na che we la shi sin se wan che den che kwan che na pe ma den se che zo la so wa de so shi de le shi. Kone se la ma ra ma che da ke che lo pe ne de che ne ka de che me kone che san de ku son to che ngo to ze de so. Ai da ge ku long kom Kulon kom ta piji ngi lau mar chana su jab singra chanju sem gi kulon chik awo ji jeswas.
We should correct our motivation. I shouldn't need to elaborate there. That should be a motivation of bodhicitta. do one's best to motivate on bodhicitta.
Oh yeah, that go gom lo. Ha diri yan jang ngon do jin ke tön da sam lo dan ju chung tö chung di pe ge sang bo yin sang go gom.
Now rejoicing, think how fortunate one is again to have the opportunity to listen, reflect, and study on this text, Ornament Clear Realization.
Ah, da ne ngan zo da jin zhen yin ya di ya wo yong ya chi di. Ni long zhong piding exercise des. Chen da zi gom jia dang chang zo xing ge ba. De zi ji long zhong des chen ra.
So that we are able to listen well, we will do some breathing exercise, which you know how.
Oh yeah. 다음서 단기 굴론디 아니 신변 전주심 굴론제로. 다 단다 진짜 녀야디 온도진기 다 주자 남지 순지 최주 디가도 닝겨 재산디 두 상담나야고요. 한데 파시우 탐도도 다 단다서 뒤에 책지와 전주심저를 뭐지 맞게받는 지 저와님만 권능군데 피버셔 책지 상만 rol러두고요.
Yeah.
재산 단기 굴론 상담다야디 드리네시네 지 수술용하게 자wak하나 저어디 심지신의 편바치도 지기니스 김전 가라나 심지신조 말이야 거린 첨보래 편도 첨보래 재산다 로왕랑조 내가괴 디지나레 다두고 디지나레 가레이나 심진을 되네 두고를 미시지 두야면도 재산이 거린 첨보래 대시등에 거린 소야시 되네 신빈 이마티르네시지 신변이 삼단기 인사디 chanju 셈다 셈제가 달로 장용고로와 다드네 셈제니 지 마냥바치야단 공배도야 답람라 네 단당조 단다다 드네마 롭젠 도단도 텐데지 텐제 님베이나 아니야고요.
So we've done motivation, breathing exercise, and then rejoicing. Motivation should be that one is having this beneficial intention, this bodhicitta. So one will listen to the ornament of clear realization, which is covering these 10 topics of exalted knowers, omniscient beings. And in terms of the motivation, one can recall the verse that one has memorized, the dedication of bodhicitta. May the precious body mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have increased but not, never diminish, only increase more and more. So why is that? Because in short, when we are motivating, we need to do that at the behest of other living beings. So only a heartfelt thought towards sentient beings. So we're thinking on this bodhicitta with regards to the way sentient beings have been kind to oneself, and all of one's actions of body and speech within that dedication will be totally dedicated to those sentient beings, how they've been kind, how they've benefited you in a temporal sense and in a more ultimate sense. So having seen that they're kind, the next point is to repay them. So then, having generated the altruistic mind of bodhicitta, one has to train in it. And after having generated that, one has to recall it again and again during the lesson when one studies to keep in line with that.
당연히 단다 최 관장해야 돼. 오늘 전주의 셈 계약이 탑람치 인기 디인상 당연히 니마트리네 선바상보 지도 최고도 스러와디다 지 정보이나 다단다디 택과 첨부 된저로와 택과 첨부 된저디 가래조디 전주 셈 제도 되는 송용고 여러 제가 전주의 셈 다그 생각도 셈제 남제 천지 최주나네 셈제 바당세 셈제도 로심바체 셈제 대중군도 셈제 줄레제와 당 아니 자심 초람 탑사로 하더라 자심 초람 탑로 그래 다드네 티진 당하시연도 네양 람라다 지 티진 셈제 탑야라 냠네 컨데 초고래라도네 지 덴바니다 덴바시다 군조 숨라서고 되다 아니 디네다 지 가서 그래 티진 톤 네 쟁알라 담바 ngwe싱알라 담바 네 해 톤람다 공람다 담바 따디에 당아주 당아주여로 디도 가서 dom지주군에 여와주디 다 간다 저케지주디 티진 재산단다 티진 심지 ngala 톱심바 인자 다 티진 심지 톱에 탑람체 디 탑람라야네 디 톤람 공람도 좋다 아니 톱니다 공부해도 도당 그림 받이 시행고로
So in that sense, whatever Dharma one is practicing for us, that Dharma must be of the great vehicle. So what all we are doing is cultivating a method to generate that altruism, and only in that sense thinking only from now on, from now on I'll only have the kind heart directed towards other sentient beings, because really the great vehicle, the Mahayana vehicle, is all about the means to clarify that great heart, to manifest it. And we looked at it in terms of these 10 topics. For example, first we looked at the Mahayana mind generation, and then we went through the precepts, which are the 10 means for training in that Mahayana mind generation, where we looked at the relative truth, the relative bodhicitta in terms of the mind generation, and then going on to these other precepts, which looked at relative truth, the relative truth and ultimate truth as the basis or entity for training, and then going through that with the 4 noble truths, and further on into the 3 sublime jewels as a result. So then we talked about that, starting when you generate that first path, that would be the Mahayana path of preparation, and so forth sequentially through these 10 pieces of precepts, going on through the path of seeing, path of meditation, and so forth. In short, when one generates the great vehicle, vast mind generation, one has got to sequentially go through the path of seeing, then through the path of meditation, and you keep in mind this other orientated bodhicitta to keep it firm and stop it degenerating. Yes.
다디네 산잠데 라마슈니 산제 사바나 요레스타 티징 당아츠고다 티징 셈지 탑에 탑람당 아니 톤란란 담바 곤란란 담바스인데 다디네 람마슈고네 시지로 템바니다 템바시다 냠네도 주당아서 퇴야 여러와 당아가르와 당아 아세 탑람징아 저봐 제든 산제 라마슈네다 산제 이세파나 요레스티.
Now, so in this context then of that second of the 10 topics, we're looking at the precepts, the advice of how we train to Buddhahood, and we need to know the boundaries. Well, the boundaries are from before entering the path right up to the ground of the Buddha, isn't it? Because even at our level, before we cultivate a valid path, we have to hear about the 2 truths, then we have to train in them, we have to hear about the 4 truths and train in them. So there you go.
다디 문도진 인지털라요나 디아고도 줍단데 만남단데 산젤라서 군조스 마신오스 망에다 람리윤스 장아되는 것이 연대 두나도나 komishi chewe tangani chui tani shimba shaasi drup tangaasti dhuwaranji ngola tamba ani miyu tenpa shila tamba ten kunjo suna tamba ma shimwe zundru tamba lam yunsi mingiwe zundru jenga la tamba ngwe she thula tamba shi ani thonlan tamba konlan tamba shije sawe nala sebo shuji tuyungu daati
konzo yore dine
yore
so if everyone can, if you have this text, text is the 8 categories and 70 topics. On page 9, at the bottom, we've just quoted a verse that deals with these 10 trainings or 10 pieces of advice. It's also in the root text in English on Ornament, and it goes like this. It is said, achievings, the truths, the 3 jewels, Buddha and so forth, non-clinging, tireless, thoroughly upholding the path, the 5 eyes, the 6 excellent qualities of the clairvoyances and so-called paths of seeing and meditation, precepts are to be understood as the entity of these 10.
어디 식자회나 세우 동용우다다.
좋아.
다디네 아니 단다 다 티진 남지 천주기 최주는 셈지체 당아체 다 숨바디 녜진라 남시데스니다 녜진라사디 티진기 졸람셰거로 티진기 졸람
Yep.
제단디다 티진 조당 데 친이샤도 데 친이데 타바차든 조제스 추명원도 지르스네시 덴방원도 제스도 지딘벨람서 타바차든스로 타바차든스네 갈라고 타베 차단 팀바스 제장원도 타르바사데 코발레 타베 타르바라 대단 팀바스리 타바차든사데 아니 다 타바토베 아니 개와디 예스나레 람게 차드도 맞죠 타바 차드는데 솔람레 시기요래 타바 차드는지 개와서스나나 아니 지구론지기 차네 샤고 여러분도 뒤준디 디지 신나야고 여러분도 개와 찍부직장으로 앞에는 가서 산도 진짜 저런 정도 네 계시고래 저런 진짜 닝기요로 봐
Yes.
아니 데 메르게 유치고요로 먼저 상마게 단데 녀야단 셰야단 주야 상마 최치고다 봐 뭐네다 최치고다 디 직퇴군이니 요 말에 지금 두부다니르니 개요 말에 안딜라야다 직 메디스스스랑도 정말로 단란톤에 이런서 깔레 잡지 용고요로 제가 디 꾸노데 가려요래 라윈데 다 꾸노 멘다오 시기 자와직디 에네 멘다오 시차로요로 당연히 미카셰지기 당아 진짜 용제 소소 삼바지고 세대가 삼바지고를 주용하다 아니 진짜기 직 삼로로 같이 세대가게 꾸노게 꾸네 란제 진짜레베이나 아니 학과적이야 지 담년다로 오던데 아니가 여러와다 담년다 저런서다 연말들에 원줄에 안리야 냐가 여러 섭섭마잖아데 지금 추제 제 제상아 진짜디 마용콘라 지금 추제기 디 자와데 때 조르제 용구이와 지금 첨번이다 많이다 나 다른 셰야디 지금 추제 만들어 제제 술레나 미 찍레나 니레나 줄레나 캐게면도 수 가줄레나 되는게 삼바 남다지 셰 삼지 꿀론데 야고지 세답체 지기와 다디 제연도 신변기 삼바심으로 다 녜디야 직된 추제 되네로 다 드린 미지 담니 담야고 용야로 다직 부어라야로 된데 삼로도나 아니 녜기 추셰디 베는 알자베나 녜 추셰디 가르차래라나 추고란 차야 말다 직된베 세디강 차월 침으로 녜단다 직 셰야 삼마 셰다 추레데레 꾸농기 직 세디 직된기다 직된 추제단 되나 꾸농디 다 직된 추제단 되는데 아니 꾸농 차네 아니 추차가요 뭐다 오외신의 추차고로 아니 레타르바르 차르 가르부치가도 낙부치가
Yep.
차서 때 추비다 참아서 당에 여치마 밀리지 터베시디에네 나다 디링아 소남사기 예섬 그런데 밀려 추시기 예섬 네 저런 인게한테 되지 인테나 아니 딜라야 소남 차드윤서 소남 차드 니차서 직디 초코란 차금도
Yep. Tangbodi.
직된 추제단 되나 다 니버디 겨치마 미 오늘 하미 고만 터베치 되는데 최지구 요연테나 딜라 소남 차드윤서 거다
Yes.
가르스는 미류된데 소남지 되우와 미게 류디 되우와
Yep.
주스레스나 소남사베로 개와산 짐바탄 수름송 소금 된데게 되우와 세상 소남지 되우선자 대차도 되면 소남차 되면서 니차서 숨바드 가래스나 타바차 되면서들다 당아 겨치마 미고발레네 다 미니 요르자냐레샤로 다들레 코델레 타나다 코바데 처음에도 코발레 탈바치고도 대지등에 안에 진짜 땅에 최세기 그런서 인기인세 삼든데 스tam브이나 아주 겨와디 타바차 되려다 다 코발레 탈베 타바마다 벗어 겨와디 조고요 말다 찍디 세다가는 조르고다 찍디 겨치마 조르고다 찍디 코발레 테베 탈바 톰니 아니 겨와디다 죽드리도 거라 겨와디다 데부디 죽두고 열어 다 드네 가서 당기 꿀론 째나 봐 당에 세도 심지신을 편법 바식 되시되네 대지되다 나 추인기 심지신을 편법 바식 되지 대지도 추인기 선남 아니 소남지 초스다 조장의 규차고다 조장의 규다디 아니 지시 산제지 고마 마토바다 저 빼나 자족나라 니가 추틱바직로 보다 지버 추틱바직고데 자족마감 받아 조금 말어 어디나 지지지가 내가 찍고 찍냐 임박한실라 삼로단다 멘다시기 아니 대우멘다 시차연 거로 다디 유용하란서다 니마니마처럼서 삼고음제고 요래 면함제고 요래 최치고 요래 어디 꾸노인데 삼바트 꾸노인데 상마야고 지고야 돼 개정부 시호제를 잔주쌤 꾸노게 셈바 치주나다 아니 소남 랍첸사도 요라 어디 디네가 첨부 시호제를 디신 거를 승여버드
So then today, looking at these paths, we're looking at the path of wanting to, we talked about these instructions as methods to go beyond difficulties and sufferings on the path to Buddhahood. So then, in line with that, we have to have a countermeasure to cyclic existence, and a method that is in line with reversing cyclic existence, that actually is, let's say, in concordance with going for liberation. So now that brings us to the third of our 10 topics at the bottom of page 9, the definition of, and this is all to do with the Mahayana path of preparation, the definition of which was read out. So the definition of a Mahayana path of preparation is a Mahayana mundane path that is concordant with the clear realization of truth and abides in a class of clear realizers that arise subsequent to the completion of a partial concordance with liberation. It and partial concordance with definite discrimination are mutually inclusive. So what this is bringing to mind is that it's really talking about as if we have already have the uncontrived first of the 5 paths of the Mahayana path of accumulation. It is really a motive, isn't it? So even before this path of preparation is reached, I'd like to talk something about the motivation behind actions, how they pan out. So here, firstly, whether or not, when we come to the class, you have to have had an intention before you come here. So, and also when I'm teaching, you who are listening, the interpreter who's interpreting, we all have to have had a motivation there. And our motivation here should be good. It should be one of the Dharma. It is, we haven't come here just for no reason, nor have we come here to deceive others. We've come here with the motivation of learning and studying the Dharma. And all of you have put great effort in that regard to do that. Now, going on from there, we can look at 4 types of thought that would back up such a volition or motivation. The first one, okay, that would be that if your motivation is just to come to this class, to be happy, or just have a good time, or to have fame, and in that case, your motivation to come here is very much mixed with this thought of this life, then it becomes very mixed with the 8 worldly concerns. And we must take care that our motivation is free from these 8 worldly concerns. From my side, before I come to teach, I try to make sure my motivation is clean from those 8 worldly concerns, and that whether 1 person comes, 2 people comes, 10 come, whatever, that my motivation is excellent, and that my motivation is one of the beneficial intention to benefit them. If it is mixed with the 8 worldly concerns, then I might be thinking, will I get something from the class? Is there something in it for me? This would not be, or will I get famous? This would not be a pure Dharma. This is not a pure Dharma motivation. But Dharma really should be Dharma. So in that case, it's mixed with the 8 worldly concerns very much. Black is mixed with white, which is not so good. So that would be the first of our 4 types of volition or motivation or thinking. Secondly, if my motivation to teach here is that when I teach, we again secure a perfect human rebirth, and that your motivation when you listen is so, as listening to the Dharma, then we would have what we call a simile of virtue, or an action that it's in concordance with virtue. Why? Because what we're really doing is assuming a volition that manifests a result. That manifest result is again being human. And we're doing this on a causal level by having a virtuous mind and engaging in the 6 parameters to do so. But just be mindful that if your motivation is just for the future life goal of again being human, when you reach that goal of a future life being human, that virtue that you will have accrued is exhausted. So now coming to our third type of thought, and that would be thinking in accordance, or a type of virtue that concords with the mind striving for liberation. Here, you would have thought life is a bit of a struggle. life's got all sorts of problems. I want to be free of the cycle of existence. And in that sense, if I motivate in that regard to teach with that motivation, if you motivate with that regard to listen with such a motivation, until that state of liberation is reached, that virtue that we're accruing will not be exhausted. But when liberation is in fact reached, that virtue will be exhausted. Now, fourth thought, as you did prior to this class, when you motivated with the benefiting intention of bodhicitta, here your focal object is solely only to benefit sentient beings. And in that regard, you are trying to complete the two collections. That's a vast store of merit and a vast store of wisdom. As it is said in the teachings, just like a drop, when it merges with the ocean, will never be exhausted from that source of the ocean. In that regard, if we have the correct intention of the bodhicitta, when we, that merit that we accumulate with such a volition won't be exhausted until that goal of all beings coming to Buddhahood is accomplished. It will last that long. So now here what we have is, whatever work you do, whatever job you do, it's the same job, but you're backing that job with either of these four thoughts. Now, if you go about your day-to-day life with that thought of bodhicitta, then I can say that you will accumulate great waves of merit. This was just an important point I wanted to share.
다디 인데 삼다는 디그래. 먼저 nguyor ba. Ngudi ngugan la chungna ngugan shiyor isra.
Right.
Beng shiyor isra. Beng chigi ane 세대가랑 아니 대제 되네 요마레스 세대 사즈는 사자레스 콜 밴드 고잡사레스라 다 뱅니와디 저치마사고 되그래 저치마라 밀류된 되그러 하딜냐 저치마네 고잡도 그랬어 뱅송바디니 콜레 타르 타바탑도 고잡도 그랬어 뱅시바디다 베데 산제지 고마톱도 사바다 고자코나 요마레 시시 남네 파더와 산제 고마톱 사네가서 전주 쌤 냠린 제심지 신의 편버 도구로 견다 고자 뒤즈치네요 맞다고 다 제자한테 응가시긴 봐라
One can think about this and how one would put money in the bank. If you're putting money in the bank just for this life, the end of this life, that bank account closes, and that's it. That's all you can reap from the first bank. The second bank, if you put your money in there thinking, future life, human would be good, human birth would be good, when that human rebirth is attained next life, that bank account closes. Third bank account, you're going for liberation. You're going to be liberated from cyclic existence. When that stage is obtained, that bank account is no more. And the fourth bank account, here, hopefully you're going for bodhicitta and the beneficial intention. This is a bank account that never closes. This bank account is always open.
That's smart, yeah.
So if you're smart, where will you invest? Where will you invest? Where will you put it?
the payment way Geza Zojangona Kondogi, on the Kondo said the jump to go Marva. Simation on the Kondo Sana, Gawadi, Gavaton Savi, Gavaz order with a mixage and symbol of Kondo Savi in a row. Junjunal Gavadon Savi, Jinan Dichilas of Kondo. Leje Kayinti Guinja, Kondo Jigi Jombachus. Chanju Simba Maini Jigi, Chanju symbol of Kondo Savina. And Jimbatama, the students all like Gavaton to Savi Geza, the Kondo Jigi, and the Mavis Shogores Lara. She said that Zojanong may give the jump to Yomara. Zojanong was Shanati, gave it jump to Yomara. Zojan among away gave us all this. 대다도 개발이 여러 돈이 공배도 그치와 당 군접 찬죽 셈다 된대 공리 좀 대단다 컨트롤 좀 해야 돼 군접 개발 소남 사들에 이시기 초디 콘트 좀 두고요 말이다. 제가 동의 공부당 전주쌤께 NS학에 개와디게디 수직이 좀 두고요 말이다. 근데 제가 전주쌤 개좀 보시오래더라.
Okay. So then another benefit of this fourth mode of thinking on the dedication level is that anger cannot destroy those roots of virtue if one dedicates well. Conversely, if those merits are not dedicated, and if you were to be angry at a bodhisattva, as Shantideva puts it in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, a moment's anger directed towards a bodhisattva can destroy, like 1,000 eons of merit. And that's just one moment's anger. So we're talking about all of these merits accumulated on the method side of the path, generosity, ethics, forbearance, all of that. So, but once the merit is dedicated, such anger cannot destroy those roots of merits that you have in fact dedicated properly with bodhicitta. So there's two types of virtue or merit you can accumulate, isn't there? There's the wisdom side of emptiness, and then there's the method side, which is connected with relative truth. Well, those merits that you collect on the wisdom side of the path, emptiness, cannot be destroyed. But that latter one, the second one of the relative truth of the bodhicitta, of those first perfections, that, if not dedicated properly, can be destroyed by anger. So that puts a lot of importance on the method side of the path. In that light, bodhicitta is so important.
진짜 다가라네 딜 강에 주는 민도하다. 레 카두코라노와. 누가 전부 쉬어지래도 알아.
Just think on it. The source, the cause of bodhicitta is the great compassion. And once that mind is generated, whatever person harms oneself, not only would you not be perturbed or upset by the harmer, your compassion for them will get greater. Think of the power of such a mind.
다들 준주 칼로 쇠베게 리우카도도 일단 항사브레도 단단 가서 너버제니디 원에서는 가서 너 말했지 가서 컨트롤하니 저러와 팀 원에서는 팀 가서 다치는 말했지 팀 가서 소남사야게 답에 소남 쇠발에 dembe 소남데 소남 랍심부 쉽지 짐바당을 그냥 쇠바고미야디 칼레카 그래서 너버제니디 용어요와 짐바탄사 유다 또 가서 랑가간도다 미교 가서 있는 짐바탄도 상시 짐바탄을 추에 짐바탄사 칸데요. 너버지니디 유뉴시오 선선 소고미야디 시라 꼼바요인다. 소발데베 니 개와디 중꼼바레 제가 너버지니디 답에 개외신이나 개외신이 초드기와지 따고를라우디 아니 준주기도 답에디 다 할레버라지 아주 초응어가 나나 편도 신부 쉬지리더라.
In that respect of great compassion, Shantideva's chapter, Patience chapter, is wonderful, incredible about, if you go through that, how the harmer is not really the harmer, the enemy is not really the enemy. What's happening here is a source of tremendous merit, great waves of merit. In fact, if one can train in tolerance in that regard, well, if we look at these other paramitas, such as generosity, it would be easier to train in that. You have potential to help people that are in need with those physical levels, but even in terms of the generosity of Dharma. However, the objects that appear to you on the level of tolerance, these enemies, sometimes rarer to find, and that's why in the Patience chapter it talks about them being likened to the best spiritual friend. Yes, because of that.
어다지 다드네 타바차든 적제스 중설다 제가 조람 시진 조람데 타바차든 초람지 제스 중을 했다. 소람지 제스 총 원도 람 원도서 데 람서 람지 릭스네 봐 데몽원도다 제스 동 데몽원도서 데 카레스나 데몽원도서 데 티진 토람지 신이래 덴버서 데 동반이체 네 동반이 무슨도 도니 대단 제스 좀 말해서 제단 티진 조람디 돈이 든지스지 도고 인자 고 조고 쇼직 돈이 무슨도 도고라 녀와 인자 다고 돈이 또 살아 근데 다 돈이 든지디 파이어제스는 무슨 또 지저사 인자는 고 대단다 더우라지 요레스다 더우 요레스
Looking at the other aspects of this definition on the top of page 10, clear realization of truth that abides in a class of clear realizes that it's subsequent to the completion. Subsequent here, we're talking about the fact that the person has already generated the Mahayana path of accumulation. So subsequent to that, after that, and then before directly realizing or becoming a clear realizer of truth, concordant with it, but prior to that. Why? Well, in a sense, the person has realized emptiness, but is still at this level dependent on a generic image, but they have a realization of it. But what they are really close to is getting a direct, clear realization of it on the path of seeing. So that's why these kind of specifics in the definition here.
다드네 틱진 직된베 람라송아 틱진 세야데 택과스도 기신셔나시레 코네야 자니데 네 틱메스도 코알레 코와짬레야 타 저번에 택과 총한체 다 택과 첨불라요인데 코와자마세 시디비지 원래야 덱투고에서 틱진스 차와 틱진스 되르다.
Right. Now when we have the Mahayana path definition within this Mahayana, what we're talking about is a great vehicle. In the root Yana vehicle, we're just talking about the reversal of cyclic existence and being liberated from that. But in this vast vehicle of the Mahayana, not only reversing the cycle of existence, but also the subtle obscurations that remain in the way to Buddhahood. That also removes, so therefore, Mahayana.
나 직된베 람선 티진 티키스냐마 직라라인데 안데 케좀보레샤 디 코든 차베이나 아는 거네 직 코와다 냥데세야 될 코든 믹스에 차야 하과르데 원한주 르덴디라 냠보텐주 요와다 르덴디 아니 빠니 도주 되발라 직된 람세야 되네 되네 코든 차도 한 직세야디 아니 미다베 태어로 갖고 단다 요기 매워 차오들 직버스 그런 거죠.
Yeah.
가서는 퍼버디 차스는 퍼버디 직버라 봐.
Yes.
직버 뒤제 있으니까 봐체다. 단대 직된 라이드 가서 놓고 녀부도 매워서요. 녀부 겁나 고 매워서요. 시장 안저게 류된다. 안저 주지 아니 되자다 시단다 콘도다 가제다 타도다 두두 창마 다 단대 믹스에 직된 버러 방죠. 근데 녀부 건배도지 파 매워서요 인자 직된 레스 다 직된레 데워스 라윈데 박외람들레 직된레 박외람데 녀부 빵도야 녀부 매워서 돼야 뭐 코란 녀부를 되라 코란 야제 돼야 미지 코 매워서 소야 그 그겁다 소tum이 요 말다 코데오시샤베는 박외람데 예데 펄 미드초 당코니 님도데 미드초데 파 매워서 빼나 박외람을 레사스나나 아니지 동ning 웃음도 또로도 장가라 단지 제서지다 가가 단지 그 사면도 사야 말다로 단지 그 사면도 저다 가로고요 아니 사면면은 단지 끼예요 말봐 아니 다 코나 셰럽 코나 야 야제 돼야 레미시지 코 매워 차야기 그겁처럼 매워 인자 직딜렌 대왔어야 돼 간저 주지 람스는 간저 주게 단다 셈당 풍보도 상마 간저 루 풍보데 르덴데 샤는 거는 냠내 치도나 르덴디 샤는 로투고요라 코 매우스는 로투고요다 아니 코월레 타베 타왈 로투고요레 탁싱로 로투고요레 딜르덴디 샤는 아니 다 랍중나 산제살라 로투고요레 셈디야 와 정말 샤는 로투고요레 디두 코 직도고요라 냠베도 비지 산 직덴벨람 직덴사디 식디 코덴디 레비나 간조 오네 다 다들 직도와서 루덴도 착부로 오지 멤버 그 매우수기 유대와 시오지. 대상다 유설.
Now, also in this definition we have Mahayana mundane path. So looking at this word worldly or mundane, that has a great context in terms of cyclic existence and nirvana, in the sense that, you know, when we talk about worldly here, we're talking about necessarily having to have an antidote to negate its disintegration. Well, if you just look at impermanence, itself, the definition of impermanence is momentary disintegration, like this cup. This cup is going through that momentary disintegration. But when we talk about the bottom of page 9, Mahayana mundane path. So Mahayana mundane path, here, mundane, we're talking about not just the fact that it's impermanent, but the fact that it requires an antidote. So for example, the invalid emotions of desirous attachment, aversion, and jealousy, they all have to have a countermeasure to stop them having an effect on us. So let's look at the Arya beings. They have gone beyond this mundane level of having to apply an antidote. There's no more countermeasure to apply here for the Aryas. Why? Because for them, supramundane or gone beyond, because they have cultivated a valid wisdom consciousness realizing emptiness. There's not only is there no more clinging at self, but the seeds of clinging to self have also been vanquished. So their wisdom only gets stronger. Hence, post or past mundane, supermundane. For us, however, our mind and our embodied aggregates require an antidote for us to go beyond that state of the mundane. So if we're going to become liberated, if we're going to a pure land, if we're going to become Buddhas, we need to put efforts into the antidotes to get to those stages. So that there is the line between mundane and supermundane.
어디다 티징이 대체된 튼지체. 다 티징 될래나 티징 존은 트여서 무서워 쳐줘시. 대튼다 기선지 랍사라.
이러면은
상상 티징 존은 권나 요래시.
Right, so then that's looking at the very different definition of the Mahayana path of preparation. And as you will see in your text, when divided they are fourfold. The heat level of the Mahayana path of preparation, the peak level of the Mahayana path of preparation, the tolerance level of the Mahayana path of preparation, and supramundane quality level of such a Mahayana path of prep.
다단다 디월라 다남지 천지 두바 티진 두바세는 티진 두바단 티진 두베 때나 시네릭스 니여 최고로 다가 티진 두바스에 가서나 장심지지 장생기 남지여와 장생기 남디길라 네 티진 두바스라고요 티진 두베 때나 시네릭스에 장심지지다 람게 띵기 동반이들다 장심지다 람 세우마잖아 셈 장주셈베주의 셈디 람레데라 장주셈베주의 셈디 두바체 대딩기 동니디 아니 대전도에 때라시 내릭스 다 딜라야 아니 가르잖아 덴저 두바 쪽숨세 다 디조 가르된 거라위나 다 장주셈바디게 람게 두바딜라 멘다요레스와 베나 솔람 졸람 통람 꼴람 밀람 디젤라 멘다요레스 이나야 대딩기 동니디jel라 여야 말아 솔람딩기 동반이 졸람딩기 동반이 통람 꼴람
오케이
디조 란신기 두바 셈 란신기 두에 동바자 베나 나란주 주지 셈 란신기 두에 동바다 산제 주지 셈 란신기 두에 동바는 디니라 란신기 두에 동베 차네 켜와요 말레스 다 켜와디 가르쇼브레 라비나 먼저 주지 동반이 로베 뇽모 데데요레스와 산제 주지 네 생구된 동반이 로베 니마다 뇽모다 테버레스 켜와데르메시 셈 란신기 두에 동베 차라 직버직냐레스 제산데 티젠이다 두바 족숨디제게 두바디제라야 람디제라 멘다멘다 족숨이나 코딩기 동반이디 네 디오마레스카자 켜와요 빼나 나갈라야 아니 도나라 요레 나갈라니 체제 미믹소스 차 저비주 좀 두바 조সম라 아니 저위 조선 필요고요나 저위 가시 첨보여를 가시 진주여를 가시 가오여를 가시 나고여를 가시 자고여를 가시 감보여를 와 다음에 여러 이나야 코 필사회 제들 자 당부 필요에 쉬어들이 니와 필요에 대시들 여체도고 말아 지나시 디 심기된 주니디jel라 겨와요 말해 이나 두바딜라 겨와요서 어디 빼대 닝저보다 디 샤여다.
So now, this fourth of the 10 topics dealing with, the boundaries before we go on of the Mahayana path of preparation exists only on that path itself. So the fourth of these topics, naturally abiding lineage, the basis of the Mahayana learnings. Here, essentially, the bodhisattvas have to cultivate valid path consciousnesses. 13 of these. And there's also the empty quality of those paths. So let's say the minds they're accomplishing are paths, but there's also the empty nature of those paths. So let's look at these paths, the 13 paths that the bodhisattva will train in to accomplish as a valid mind. Well, path of accumulation, training, meditation, path of seeing, meditation. All of these paths that are valid states of mind are all equally empty by nature. Their accomplishments are different, but their emptiness or the emptiness, is exactly the same. Let's look at the example of our mind and the mind of a Buddha. Our minds and Buddha's minds are exactly the same in their empty nature, their lack of intrinsic existence. How they differ is whether or not they have adventitious stains or not. So in our mind, we have these, from time to time, adventitious stains of invalid emotion. The Buddha has no stains of invalid emotion. So when we come to this, these 13 achievements of paths, valid path consciousnesses in the mind of a bodhisattva, in Sutra, it's expressed quite beautifully with the analogy of 13 birds. 13 birds are about to alight, take off into space, and then the birds have various sizes. Some are big, some are small, some are black, some are white, some are fat, some are thin. And when you watch them take off from a distance, you don't know which is first and which is second, but they're all birds. So in that sense, all of these 13 are distinguished only by their accomplishment, not by their vacuity.
세상 두바디 티진 총람네 군대파데 찬생고 두바라.
Yeah.
어디시 다디 비진디 디로라.
Right, so then we are looking at the boundary of the Mahayana path of accumulation to the end of a continuum of a sentient being just prior to Buddhahood.
다드네 나와디 티진도 단덕가 간도 가르신 남제 순적이 출시고 달와 디게 남제 청구로 와야 유전냐래도 유대부 참듯이 다 미그바다네 세네 티진도 왜 미그바스 쉐고라 티진도 사데다 총람네 티진 총람네 지 균대 파져도 샤송아 디게 미그바 가래스나 네 시저 탐제래로 시저 추 탐제래 추 탐제 데 미그바에 균대 가래스나 그 도도 줘 쳐베 시레스 도도 가르줘스나 디 개와레 디 미가와레 디 롱마데레 디 직덴바레 디 직덴렌 데와레 디 삭제레 디 상메레 디 두제레 디 두마체레 어데 디 삼데레 디 숭메레 디 산제레 디 셈제레스 디 도도 줘 쳐와스 디 임바다 마임바게 타코베 다제시세기 시송자 디진도에 미과스 어디라 레스토.
So then the fifth of our topics. So what are the observed objects on the top of page 11 of the Mahayana achievings? What are these focal objects? Everything that is a superimposition that is to be eliminated. In short, any type of category, virtue, non-virtue, unspecified, good, bad, black, white, all of these things are suitable to be eliminated. In short, objects of knowledge, categories. So, what's its boundary at the bottom? It extends to all established bases, all phenomena.
chede chawase.
Chede chawas.
Ta di sanje debudi shegol. Di khonla duwa jusumdegi ta migba chwe tamjela migje nyamlen chini khari thokgo yore lawi na ani sanje yukomband thokgo yore shegol ta. Chede chadans dida khangi chede chwe chwe debutadu tikjen duwe chede chwe chini dida sanje tyunjigla dowa. Di tharanda.
Narilla. So the sixth of our topics is the object of intent, Chedu Chawa. Here we're talking about the resultant Buddha state, because this object of intent is mutually inclusive with a Buddha. So what this is saying, that all of those 13 things the Bodhisattva will have trained in, and all of the focal objects, vis-a-vis all phenomena, what does that result in? That results in the state of a Buddha.
Da sanje da sanzam sanje sakona la yorwa. Da di jelang pechi tuzurana jime dandang zo chembasum shego yorwa, chembasum namjin shego yorwa. Ane jawashi debu chugus da di shenu jime debu chugul katula ane sanje ko tuzurana des shena yago yorwa.
Right. So this boundary exists only on the Buddha ground, and we're talking about these 8 topics with regard to ornament. So 3 exalted knowers, 4 trainings or application by which we accomplish them, and the last category is the resultant Buddha state. Now later on in the series of classes, if we get time, we'll go through that last one, which is what are the characteristics of a Buddha.
Tadinde sanje goma thobala ya tadi dus chegdo du samno chik tandi ya thablang khar lengoresna.
Yeah.
Ane khojase ta ko khudup se ade jinzo phajin thukdi nyams lanje sanje goma de thogures ta ona jinzo phajin thukdi khandes nyams langore labdi ta de ngazo de shenje de ngazo da ngaranzo ge gewachiya de zo samdan yor 다 진소 파지 뭐만한도 직 도살 짐발라 얘나 네 짐발라 되네 네 파진 툭로 와 짐베 수림 짐베 선에 두 샤잔지 도살 근데 네 아마 수림라로 자시나 다 직시나 아니 카주쇼라 호라 베나 짐바 미 방고로 버질 칼라르지 알레오데 마직 유르다 당일 질 베티제 라고라
Now the 7th topic on page 12, achieving through armor, gocha. Here we're talking about training with the Bodhisattva's yoga that's conjoined with the vast intention, desiring to practice inclusively all of the 6 paramitas, all of the 6 perfections, such as generosity, within each of them respectively. So this is very important. We have been through before the importance of the 6 paramitas, and how within each of them are subsumed the 6 as well. So within ta
bena jimbala chana riba jimbe jimba lawi na ngazo mijila komonga bangwajila komonga dewi na mijila ande jimba chewa ta de komonga dewal de gewa jewa gewa de pa simji shin la pa ngwa cheba ina 아니 짐베 제가 전주 선배 아니 짐바다가 유디라 이카르스나 르 롱주 게자도 게자 르체 롱주라다 강바다 베샤다 수수 르 짐바다 다 르다 롱주 참마 짐바다 게베자와저라 대 심질 바 짐바다로 제가 단다 미질 고몽아 대유나 딕대에 게베자와 대양 심지신을 바 짐바다 미나 짐베 짐바 차송하다
Okay, so let's give an example with the first paramita of generosity. So what about the generosity of generosity? Because we're going 6 by 6. Here, if you were to give someone, let's say, $5 to help them, in terms of generosity, that in the Bodhisattva's aspiration, they give away these body, wealth, and roots of virtue, isn't it? Like I offer all my body, my wealth, my roots of merit. Here, when you dedicate the act of having been generous vis-a-vis that 3rd root of virtue, then it becomes the generosity of generosity, which is this first subset. So there's, you can offer one's body or the wealth, but also the roots of virtue is when you dedicate like that.
Jimbe jimbe da jimbe chudim kharelamna dine gawla jimba tangwa di ane rang jinji ngarang longje chimbo yoya da ngarang serungbo yoya da dinde mayin bache simjin shenle pembe chi di yin rang jinji simde songgo yo da nge jimba tangwa miyu di ane susu jigwe tonda chigidu chigimen simde songgo yo rang jinji simde songgo yo dela chudim sa jimbe chudim.
Now, the giving related to ethics, the second subcategory of giving, is when you give, but you give particularly guarding against self-cherishing. So you are not giving with any kind of personal motive. You're giving solely to benefit others, and you hold that protection through ethic.
다 디네가라 니 짐베 쇠바 가르차고 올라오시나 다 쇠바딜라야 아니 짐바다음에 내가라 미페제베 미퍼제베 아 베샤 고문가 뇽타샤 딜레만스테 초라산나 서버제 둘라비나 디네가라 아니 심마도 버치제 짐바 펜도랑 섬담메시지 아니 심마도 버치제 데도야디 지 니네 아니 짐바스티 최치고로 왔다 아 짐바다라 뇽스다 아 땅 투서 마레스로 아니 최랑이 심지 써봐서 어떤 데게 써봤는데 고미야 용고여 짐베 써봐 자기도 하다.
The tolerance of generosity endowed with tolerance would be if you were to give someone $5 and they react, $5 is way less, why can't you give more? In that case, you wouldn't get angry around that. You would keep your tolerance, your steady mind. Secondly, you would never think, oh, I can't keep giving like this and kind of give up with that kind of, how you say, you know, when you run out of energy to give, you wouldn't be like that either. You'd be patient with it.
다드네 짐베 준주라 다 딜야다 가와 곰베토네 종강 겔라토서 가신 또신 오네 아니 뮤튜네 아니 짐바다한데 종강 겔라토서
The fourth one, the generosity relating to joyous effort or enthusiasm, you delight in that generosity and you never give up. You're steady with the joyous effort. You delight in giving.
아니 짐베 삼딘 라 짐바타베 네바 갑들라 셈데 네바 쳐고로 텐시 파요 땡고 되면은 상상랑은 밀랑 낭중 쇼도고도 육구도 아카시 근데 많이 봐야고지 셈 딜라 짐 셈데 네데요나 미페절라 야라단 템베고네 되면은 가시 남에 단지 켜드베 쪼버레던지 제가 간실래야 파조 컨트롤해야 된대 지금도 내가라 셈바디 아니 직배 짐베가나 당에 미 동에 셈방에 밀 펜심 대과 준비 쳐서 펜심단 대회 거네 파절라 아니 동에 셈바디라 네 심베가네 아니
So the fifth one of generosity related to this fifth parameter of concentration, when you actually give, you're focusing single-pointedly on it. So you wouldn't give something away to someone in a kind of a non-caring way or just toss the money at them, for example. They might get angry if you gave like that. One would think that, oh, I'm giving in the context of altruism and the great vehicle. So you give it with mindfulness. You give it with introspection. And that is this one. You hold your mind on the act.
다들 짐베 셰럽 칼차고로서는 짐바 땅세 유 방고듯이 짐바 땅에긴 제 고문하듯이 짐바 땅보고 라니치 간 짐베 뭐 가르서는 동에 심바들와 짐바세도 동에 심바들와 수수 셈게 아밀레 펜스토고 등에 잘라 밀레 떼고 삼아 디짐바로 짐베 뭐어디 수수 셈들와 디게 상마 란신지 마도와 때마마도 그래 삼담바는 아니 짐베 셰럽 차고 디네가 전부래다
And giving with the sixth parameter of wisdom or intelligence is seeing that you, the giver, the subject, the thing you give the substance, and the person you give to equally lack intrinsic existence. Because here we understand that the definition of generosity is the wish to give, and that the mind that is giving that thing is void as well. This is a very important point.
다디 다리딘데 뭐만 언도 직 랍차를 데려와 다 단다 양절 수dim기 짐바 수dim기 서버체 수베 짐바 수베 루스제제 상물로게 susu samlo tanje susu ge nima nime nyamleang ge tenis ane susu tije jime ngala ime tanshiro jime ngonzo share chigoti jime kiranzo tari dunda dela kiranzo homo zot kharisina ta dandange jimba nge lapsonga ta
Yeah.
ane chudim la thu sweba la thu samde la thu chundu la thu shero la thu ngal ha de ra nga dil kiranzo tije susu nyamnyong da de tije di ane kare ime di ma tije simna la yo di ma tije ande jime ngonzo ime danyong na ring ngonzo chikta chogora di
Right, so this week's homework is related to the 6x6. So we've been through the generosity one. So with the second one, for example, there will be ethics related to generosity, ethics related to tolerance, joyous efforts, and so forth. And when it comes to tolerance or patience, once again, tolerance related to generosity, ethics, joyous effort, and so forth. During the week, please note down any of these that you experience and are mindful of, and you can either email them to me and we'll go through them and see how you get on. That would be good.
bingo la danshan de
Or bingo, you can email bingo.
아니 단다 디르다 가서 추림지 여봐 한 추림도 컨석하시 세워 마셔나나 한 추림사 미그주 보고 추림 미즈 추림 안에 추림 찍찍 네게 찍 배나 준 타면서 나게 여러 나게 가는 티잖아 야고도 안 가도 나게데 먹고 싶시기도 안 가도 나게 투주톨라시오 단 탄다는 제야 말아 자 단다에 나 가도 나게 쳐야 돼배 kum시 배 숙청벌에다로 제가 딱 나게게 나게 돈바디 추림로와 안 디게 짐바 디게 아니 스와 디 준주 디 삼디 디 셔로 나게 지고 가네 에 추림디 나게 거네 티쇼스로 하데 신다 주시신다 매우지 나게 지고 가네 티쇼스
So let's give an example.
Yeah, choose your mares.
Yeah. So not giving you a choice about ethics. So let's look at it like this. You know, there are the 10 non-virtues, and we try to abstain. I think it's the fourth one of speech. We try to stop gossiping, but somehow we can't. We do gossiping all the while. It's a habit, no? We just do it. And what it does is waste time. So what holds against gossiping is ethic. So in that light, then, with ethics as a protection against gossip, then you can write each of them relating to that: generosity, tolerance, joyous effort, and so forth. Just that practice.
다디네 그룹디도 샤샤비 다디마 도샤는 건조 디 티와이나 건조 드링 체야 말아들
드링요 말했더니
다 디마 차바체자 아니들이로
드링 삼이메
아니 디네다 제바디 가래스나 죽줍세들어 죽괴 차다시 틱바치미 균데 최지리고 저 준도조 교 냠슬레면 죽두스니 될라이나 삼대 숙밀을 주고 진소 파진 툴러죠 통람 권람 밀러람 참조 체면시 미고메와라 코소 넘버 타고데 최대자 응시 두스 넘버 탐지 캠바니 나도 죽두스 티진처럼 트네 균데 발한 죽둡세다
트네 삼삼
죽둡세데 가서나 죽둡 택와침베 규단 데부 찌릭과 조와당 준두 조르주거는 냠슬렘바다 심베는 조스니 제단다 조남기 내갑스 냠렌치아도 조 셰게요로 당아란즈 어디당일라 데 신이데 데레도 택와침베 규체 데부체 아니 찌릭과 조제 다데 찌릭과 조에 준두 조르주거는 냠슬렘바 준두 요다 니나가라 준비돼 장고고 여러지 나 라마슐다 인다 자심 조람 톱산에 준비 냠래나 숙청보 장고고다 어디서 거여다 죽줍세.
Now this eighth topic on achieving through engagement is really based in the fact that when one accomplishes the Mahayana path of preparation at the heat level, one has a tremendous amount of joyous effort in one's practice. So all of these qualifications of this definition, Bodhisattva's yoga, practicing an application of some type of Mahayana cause and effect, mainly through joyous effort. So those divisions into 9, all of those that were read through, achieving through engagement and concentrations and formless absorptions and so forth, 6 perfections, the 4 immeasurables, all of those are accomplished through mainly joyous effort. Right, so we read the boundary then at the bottom of that. Number 8. Boundaries are that it exists from the heat level of the Mahayana path of preparation through to the end of the continuum of a sentient being.
소남소 가래에서는 군접 냠슬람 베나 장주그 셈 아니 다 군접 무유의 체에서 랍샤는 거대요. 장주기 셈 서버 짐바 답변한 진소 파진 투나는 nga디게데 찾아 되네 좀에 개와디게데 소남그 소소 개와라 와 베나 소남지 소체 베나 시내갑수 군접 댐버 조단 유체 람지내갑수 아니 탑그 차디게로 와 탑그 차디게다 Jimba Chudun Sowa Zundu Samdi Ningji
Shigi Kapsu Kunzo
Shi Negasu Kunzo Demba Zo Yichiro
Lamgi
Lamji Negasu Tab
Okay, yeah.
And Devi Negasu Sugutogura Sugutoguya Dus Lamna Yabuda Shi Lam Devi Dus Dosadi Tongo Sonam Sodi Doda Sonina Sonam Jiso Sonam Society Tangaranzo Tuju Gawachadi Yamaja Sonam Sojanyari.
Now these Point 9, topic 9, achieving through the collections, of course. Definition of achieving through collections. When you complete the 2 collections of merit and wisdom, let's look first at the merit side. We're talking about these conventional truths, relative truths of bodhicitta. Training in the first 5 of the 6 paramitas is relating to that merit accumulation. It's easier if we look at it in terms of basis, path, and result. So the basis is conventional truth. The path is, well, the method, isn't it? And then the result is the form body of a Buddha, the physical corpus of a Buddha.
다 선음서 이시기초 세야데 갈라거스나 람 시내가서 동반이체 전단된 버체 동반이체 람그네가서 셰럽다 돈이도 바 담에도 바 셰럽체 데위네가서 아니 추구토고래 추구토고라 수구 추구선 추구토고다 이시 추구토고여라.
Right, so then looking at the collection of wisdom, basis, path, and result. The basis is emptiness, ultimate truth. The path is wisdom, and then the result is the Dhammakaya mind of a Buddha, Yishikichuku. Primordial wisdom mind of a Buddha, let's say, Dhammakaya.
제단다데 손이 자첨부신 실라도 자첨부라고 해도 가르쳤는다 장주심이 닝지 첨부 심바인자 아니 자첨부 자로 베나 동이 도고이나 닝지다 장주심이 마시나나 아니 산제토야 유도고요 말와 다 자첨부셔야돼 아니 고롱이 차네 차용으로 하다 단기 단계리 당한서 뱅 밸런스 타마디나라샤나 다 자첨부 차송아 다 자첨부 거든데
Okay, so why is this vast definition of achieving through collections Bodhisattva's yoga that yields the great enlightenment? So why are the 2 vast collections? Well, you could have realized emptiness, but without the motivation that is vast on the method side, being great compassion and bodhicitta, you wouldn't have gotten to the 4th bank balance, which we said was the greatest, subsuming the 2 collections, so it's vast.
제가 손이 자첨부 심베고네 슬라도 심버사다 키징은도 조인바 직로 직스로 사드셴바 티진 조람 최저 딩면제 티진 조람들라 최저들라 네 최저들라 첨부 딩 충우시여와 충우 딩 첨부시여와 세상 최저 딩면제레 켜바디 파과체 네 란데 장전진 바 란데 장전스 장전사데 산제지고 마 장사데 견그릭디게 파장 와 장전스네 장죽심 산제기 딜라야 장전스고 장전진 바스데 제단 람디 공배 톱게 아니 산제지고 마 톱도야게 심베넨조데 소름 있으니래서다 고려해야
So essentially this definition, we know in the last sentence what is meant, the last line, by being conjoined with the 2 vast collections. It is a mind that has both of those in union, they can join. And then Bodhisattva's yoga that yields great enlightenment. Here we're talking about Chanchup, the final great enlightenment, where all faults have been eliminated on the one hand and all good qualities of mind have been manifested on the other. And then it surpasses perhaps a middling level of supramundane quality and is being completed.
어디라 소리 줍든 샤도가 돼. 나와. 줍든 디게 되지. 다데네 상삼디 디진 졸람 추조 졸람 추조 첨번에 균대 팔아요레스다.
Right, so there are 17 of those divisions, from great compassion all the way down to the collection through antidotes. And the boundary are from the great level of the supreme mundane quality. So it's the last level of the Mahayana path preparation to the end of a continuum of a sentient being.
다 딘네가지요 단데데 간딜라 소남서디 시초니라데 먼저 다 소남사고로 하시다 소남 산제지 공방세야데 소남사베도 총으로 왔다 건다 와 네 제가 아니 양 장죽 심지고 곰대비나 양 산제 공방 토도고요 말을 제르무신 디송다 니중 장죽 심는 콘제비 시베 자와주면 디지던데도 탈라베스 니중다 장죽 심지고 여베이나 양 아니 산제지 공방 토도고 말했어 김제 가르스나 니중다 장죽 심기 코베자와 방토고요 말했어 아니 코베자와 방에들 담에도 버셔 코베자와 단지다 미고지는 진당고게 거래스 어디 숨고라 디직 내가 쳐야지 그랬어.
Now, one needs that twofold collection of merit and wisdom, but primarily it's the merit that gets us to our goal of Buddhahood. We need a lot of merit. But just that meditating on bodhicitta alone also is not enough, as Lama Tsongkhapa states in the 3 principles of the path. If you have uncontrived renunciation and bodhicitta, this still cannot stop the root of the samsaric situation, which is clinging to true existence. Therefore, cultivate an understanding of dependent arising. So what do we need? This is because it is only a commiserate, because it is only a contradictory antidote to the ignorance grasping at true existence, vis-a-vis the wisdom mind recognizing emptiness, that acts as an antidote to that ignorance. The bodhicitta renunciation cannot.
한다 반디 초다게 참만남데나나데 송여로 참소 모단 게메지 신인이와 차제미 참바다 닌질라소가 되다 아니 데모든지 마리와 본예 냠보 응원예 마레스 김zen 가레스나 신인이와 차제 마레스 김zen 가레스나 참소 모단 게메치르라도 겨 미과질미가 진당원게요 마레스 제가 장죽심다 닌지 공부지고게 단질은 뇌두고 말해서 장죽심나 닌지검네 가서 란진질은 뇌두고 여러하다 어딜
Semanamdel.
세문남디
In the text on valid cognition, Vasabandhu, I think he says like this: the loving kindness and great compassion do not act as a direct countermeasure to the ignorance grasping at true existence. Why is that? Because these two are not the antithesis on one stream. So if you have a stream of ignorance, the loving kindness and great compassion cannot act as an antidote to it. Whereas if you have ignorance, the wisdom consciousness realizing emptiness can.
다디 이중들보다 도사마르 다디 샤샤.
We won't be able to go through the 10th one. We'll stop for today. Oh yeah, Gisla Lojuma. Sorry. I said next year. Next week discussion.
Oh, that one mangbuduwa. Jakseminde.
Gisla says there's a lot. I mean, not fully.
kulongi ni shilodrejoa jigdin chujeche. Ani sonam chadun tawa chadun zojana dos de dodan de che. Ni tanda di jigdin belam jigdin basa di tanda khari khari me di zoche wa.
Yeah.
And then teaching to Druba Joksum Chuni Joksum la Mendawa Chawa Yueta Mesa to Zojito. Ane Dene Tanda de Migba Dodo Chewa Cheveshi. Dodo Judu. Teaching to be Dodo Chewa Cheveshi. Teaching to be Dodo Chevas in a conditional cover in Mirva. Dodo Cheva said. And the neck could do the Jinzo Pajirin Tudu Sama to Kande me. That did Disamara and then the name of Sana and the Sonam saw the Ishito. Or do the Totumnea Wodo. Mangudo.
There's a lot to. Firstly, the the 4 types of motivation we went over. The motivation of just the 8 worldly concerns, and then that which is in accordance with merit, and then a motivation that's in accordance with going for liberation, and then the motivation of the 2 collections focused on all beings in Buddhahood, and then the difference between supermundane and mundane in terms of accomplishments of the Aryas and so forth. Then there were these 13 paths or accomplishments that the Bodhisattva would accomplish, and the difference between those and the avoidant nature. It would be good also to go through these Chedachawa Mariva. Dumba. It'd be good to go through these achieving through armor. And then finally to go over the 2 collections of merit and wisdom. Okay. And then finally, why is it that great compassion and bodhicitta are not a direct antidote to the confusion grasping at true existence? Why is that the case? That's it.
Page 31, short mandala.
Lama Kusera Tenshi
Nanga Tene Chochu Jewa Tang Losan Tembe Dome Sasum Yi Dwe Meseta Doni Gyurje
Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha, and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May supreme joy bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Whatever slight positive potential I may have created, by paying homage, offering, and acknowledging my thoughts, rejoicing and requesting that the Buddha stay and teach, I now dedicate all this to full awakening. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with